And we're live. Welcome to yet another coronavirus edition of the PCS Impact Q&A. I'm your host, MJ Boyce. I'm the Director of Community Outreach at PCS Grades. With me today, as always, is Megan Harless. She is our resident PCS Reform Advocate and, oh, by the way, resident BA, censored for little ears in your room, because we love you. Okay, so before we get to Megan and our amazing panel of special guests, I'm going to go over those housekeeping items as I do every week. All right. For starters, first and foremost, we bring these experts to you, whether that's Transcom, whether that's education experts, or whether it's this lovely panelists of lovely panel, Murphy, go away, lovely panel of entrepreneurs to talk about home-based businesses. We bring these experts to you specifically to give you the answers. We have the answers. If we don't have those answers, guess what? We know who does. And if we don't know either of those things, we're going to take your questions for action. And we're going to get back to you with an answer. By the way, questions, go ahead and leave those in the comment box with a shout out, by the way. Next up is, of course, yes, we do have these experts, but sometimes you're going to be facing some specific scenarios that apply only to you. In those cases, if we can't answer those questions, there are two always and forever resources. They will forever and always be your local chain of command and your local transportation office. Those are the people who know you. Those are the people who are dealing with your stuff. Those are the decision makers that can help move you forward and help you with the specific issues that you have at hand. Last but certainly not least, we need to do our part and flatten that curve, people. We are living in some crazy times. COVID really, really has us good. And he's partnering up with Murphy, so that's even worse. But we need to flatten the curve, because when we flatten the curve, we're going to flatten Murphy with it. Murphy, you're on notice. We are coming for you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Megan for those DoD updates. Megan?
Hey everybody, so just a couple of things that we have this week. First, to just go ahead and reiterate, if you have orders, set up your move on move.mil and DPS. It just gives the companies and your transportation offices more time to kind of plan and coordinate your move for you. So as soon as you have your hard orders, go ahead and set that up. The next thing, so recently released last night, yesterday, is some Army guidance. Right now, I've just seen this published by the Army. I have not seen it DoD-wide yet. But starting August 7th, so this week, Friday, I believe, they are requiring restriction of movement, so quarantine for 14 days and a negative COVID test before you leave your location if you're going from CONUS to OCONUS. I know that's raised a lot of questions in regards to, well, I have to get my pet health certification, which is 10 days before you leave, clearing housing, and a whole bunch of other questions. We've taken those and we've already asked them up through the proper channels to the G4. So we're just waiting to hear back some more clarified guidance on that. But again, that's Army only, and you can go and read that notice on the Army's Human Resources Command Facebook page. They've got it posted there, so you can go ahead and take a look at that. And then the last thing is just kind of asking some feedback from all of you. Over the last 2 years, we've been able to get various initiatives put in place for the peak seasons to kind of help families through the process. We're looking ahead to next peak season already, to 2021. So if you've got any suggestions, recommendations for things that you would like to see implemented, go ahead and drop those in the comments so we can take them as feedback for Transcom. In the past, this year, we've gotten the background checks instated. We've gotten the claims timeline extended for families. We were able to get more crating for CONUS moves. So various different things. So if you have any recommendations or suggestions of things that you would like to see in place for next year, go ahead and drop those in the comments so we can take them as feedback for Transcom. And that's all I've got for now. So I'll throw it back to you, MJ.
Awesome. Thank you for those awesome DoD updates. Honestly, every week I learn something new, every single week. And I just want to say that Megan is an Army spouse, everyone, yet she knows how to go down the MAR admin rabbit hole like she's a Marine spouse. No way. She knows her stuff. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to introduce our special guests. And we're going to go ahead and start with Lauren Hope of Hope Design Limited. She is the owner and curator of these amazing necklaces that we do for our giveaways, by the way. So shout out Lauren. Lauren, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, would you?
You are sweet, MJ. So longtime watcher, first time caller. I am Lauren Hope, and I am the owner and artisan behind Hope Design Limited. I handcraft military jewelry to honor our service veterans and heroes, and I hire military spouses. Say I work from home. I watch my kids while doing it all. So if I get photobombed during all this, I'm so sorry.
Welcome, Lauren. And those photobombs, if that happens, it's happened to all of us. It's COVID. What working from home looks like, people. Next up, we have Stacy Benson. Stacy is actually one of our community outreach managers here at PCS Grades, but she also is the owner and chief photographer over at Millstock. So Stacy, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Stacy Benson. I've been a military spouse for about 18 years this month. I've been together with my husband for 20. I've been an Army spouse and a Coast Guard spouse, all to the same person. I've been in photography for 25 plus years, and I just recently, about 2 years ago, launched Millstock, and most of my clientele is military, so I was encouraged to create a stock photography site just for our military. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. And of course, as always, welcome. For the record, people, Stacy is usually the one behind the scenes doing all of the things that you don't ever have to worry about. She is the one making the sausage. So shout out for being on camera this time. And last but certainly not least, we have Maria McConville, who is also an Army spouse, and she is a registered dietitian and nutritionist, as well as a fitness instructor, and she is the owner of Balanced Body Nourishment. Oh, she just happens to also be, just for the record, the U.S. Army Chief of Staff spouse. So not that she is here as a business owner. Let me tell you, she's got about a drop. But Maria, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure, MJ. So as you said, I'm Maria McConville, and I am an Army veteran. I was actually a dietitian in the Army eons ago. And Jimmy and I have been married 33 years. I am the mother of 3 active duty captains. Also, our son-in-law is active duty Army. So we are definitely an Army family. And we have moved 22 times over the 33 years. And about 6 years ago, we built our retirement house at the beach in Florida, and just very ready to get there. As MJ said, I'm a registered dietitian, certified fitness trainer, certified health and wellness coach, and I own my own nutrition consulting business, and I have for 7 years, and I've been working remotely for 9 years.
That is amazing, and welcome, Maria. We're very glad to have you. I just want to say that you all are very much so troopers, because there are many shenanigans that happen on this show, and we're really glad because every single one of you I know can roll with those punches. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with these questions. Now, these are questions that we've either taken or have been hearing in all of the groups, and so I'm going to pose them all to you. This one is going to go to everyone. So we'll start again in the same order. So the question is going to be, what career issues in general have you faced in the past due to PCSing? Lauren, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Holy cow. Okay, so career issues I faced. I used to be a professional chef, and I learned the hard way they don't put fine dining restaurants right next to Army training fields. The artwork does not stay on the walls. So career issues, I had to completely pivot and change careers. I went from working at the Ritz-Carlton and kept knocking down every duty station we moved, managing Paneras, and then eventually decorating cakes at the commissary. So when we say humble pie, I have totally eaten it. True story. But when my kids were born, I decided that enough was enough, and I was not going to let the military define who Lauren Hope was. And I started this crazy little business. Took a small loan from our family and started Hope Design. And it's been a great journey. Started as an Etsy store and just prayed for that one sale a week where somebody pitied me enough to buy something. But then someone I didn't know actually bought something, and then 2 people and 5, and it just kept going. So now it has grown into its own brand, and I hire military spouses. This business moves with me. You are currently in the front room of my house and my studio, so it's amazing. I'm quite possibly going to be homeschooling my kids this year, so pivot again. But this business allows me to still be me and do my things while accommodating military life. So.
And that's really key, is kind of like, I mean, we, by nature or by force, we are adaptable creatures. We are those move, pivot, adjust, do that, rinse, lather, repeat, all that. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like we could probably teach our civilian counterparts a thing or two about pivoting. Essentially, we got the skills to show you what's going on during this time for those who haven't faced it before. Okay, so Stacy, same question. What kind of career issues have you faced in the past due to PCSing?
If we were still at Fort Bragg, it would be a different story because we would have never left. But being in the Coast Guard, we move around anywhere from 1 to 6 years, depending on which job you have in the Coast Guard. And generally, we've moved around anywhere between 2 and 4 years. And moving that often, we all know the unemployment rate for military spouses is super, super low. And trying to find meaningful employment and not just another job. Every time we moved, I had to figure out what my passion was. And it may not be the same passion as I had from one duty station to the next. I started out as a wedding planner and photographer in the Outer Banks of North Carolina and moved to Buffalo, New York. And nobody's going to that area to be a wedding planner or going there to get married, period, unless you live there. So I had to pivot and figure out something else that I was good at and reinvent myself every time I went to a new duty station. And finally, I found a career, and I started working in the nonprofit sector. And I was still able, everywhere I went, I still took my photography with me. That was the only thing that was constant for me, was my photography. And I was able to photograph military families, military veterans, and wounded service members. And I'm still being able to do that no matter where I've gone and where my home has been. So.
Fair enough. Yes, it's almost like, that saying, home is where your service member is, or home is where your soldier, sailor, airman, marine, postie. And honestly, home is where we make
spaceman.
and I cannot forget that. Man, I need to write that down.
Space people.
Spaceman. We need to research that verbiage. I'm going to hold you accountable on that one. You're going to find me that answer, Lauren. And last but certainly not least, Mrs. Maria. God bless America, Maria. What career issues have you faced in the past due to PCSing? And I'm just curious, by the way, in addition to that, how many times have you PCSed?
22. So 22 times in 33 years of marriage. So I think the hardest part was I felt like I was always starting over, and I said it's always like an entry-level position. So back in 2007, when I told my husband that I was going to go back to school to get a master's degree, he was like, why are you getting a master's degree? You've never been turned down for a job because you didn't have a master's degree. And I said, because I haven't applied for anything other than entry-level positions everywhere we went. So every time you move, you're starting over again. You never have a chance to work your way up into any type of seniority position. So I did go back to school and get my master's degree. But in addition to feeling like you're starting over at an entry-level position and not having the chance, because you move every year to 2 to 3 years to climb the ladder, there was also the whole, how do you even get a job? So after I had gotten my master's degree, I'm a lot older than you guys, but back in the day when you would apply for a job, you went in person. You could go to a place and go to their HR department and take your resume and apply in person. Well, now because everything is done over the internet, it's so frustrating. You don't even know if there's really a position there. You don't know if anyone's ever reviewed your application and your resume. There's no there's no contact sometimes. So that whole process was really frustrating. And so when I finally, after my master's degree, finally took me 10 months because we were in a recession in 2009, finally got a job. Then 9 months after that job, found out we were moving again. And so I did go to my supervisor and proposed to her that I would take the job with me and work from home. They said, we'll give you a 3-month trial. Luckily, it went fine. And I stayed with them for 3 years until they merged with another company. And then I was merged out of a job. And at that point, I said to my husband, I'm not doing this again. I don't like being the stupid new person. I'm just starting my own business. So I think just keep changing jobs, and the level of positions that you're offered when you're brand new is always an entry-level position. That was hard. But I'd say one of the most difficult things was portability of licensure. So I am a registered dietitian through the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which is a national certifying agency. But in the last 20 to 25 years, and I've been a dietitian for 35 years, probably in the last 25 years, the states now also have their individual licensure. And so every single time we move to a new state, not only did I have to get licensed in that new state, I had to pay all the other states that I had been licensed in to fill out the paperwork to say that I was in good standing in their state. So it's been extremely time consuming and extremely costly. When we moved, we've been at Fort Myer. We moved across the river to Fort McNair, 6 miles away, because of the position that my husband's in. It's a dedicated house we had to live in. Washington, D.C. wanted me to go through fingerprinting, background checks, all kinds of stuff that I was like, ridiculous. I'm a military spouse. I really have to have a background check and fingerprints and all this other stuff done. And so it has become, and then we moved back to Virginia, of course, less than 2 years later. So the portability of licensure has really been cumbersome for not just myself, but for so many other military spouses. And so I have been working extremely hard with the Department of Labor, the Second Lady's office. Mrs. Karen Pence is extremely involved in portability of licensure and reciprocity of licensure for military spouses. And I think that we're really gaining some good traction. There's been, I think, maybe 7 or 8 states where the governors have passed legislation where they will grant reciprocity of licensure if a spouse has good standing in the previous state or their home of record. So we're starting to make really good progress there, but I'm convinced we're not done until all 50 states sign that reciprocity agreement.
I agree wholeheartedly, 100%. And just for the record, I mean, not many people know this. Maybe my close friends do, these people too. But my background, my degree is in social psychology. I wanted to be a counselor. I wanted to help military families specifically. Every paper I ever wrote in college was specific to military and veteran life and that dynamic. And I realized that by the time I would get my licensure in one state or complete my supervision hours, I'd have to start that all over again. And, you know, this is like 6 years ago. And we have made strides, but I actually tabled my entire career. I tabled it and said, okay, I need to put this on the back burner for now. Social psychology is about people. I people every day. I can people. I've got that on lock. So I just use my education to support my military community in other capacities. But I really wish that I would have had those advocates, or I had known, you know, about the things that I could advocate for in terms of licensure and that type of portability back then, because maybe I wouldn't have pivoted. Though we wouldn't be sitting here talking right now if that was the case. So maybe I should rethink that.
And I just have to say, I mean, I like to think that I've moved a lot. We've PCS 10 times in 15 years. And so, Maria, hearing your story of 22 times in 33 years, I mean, it's just, you know, in a way kind of mind-boggling of how much we move. And so just how much, you know, having a job, having a source of income, something that's for us, whether we need that second income or not, just how important that is within our community. So my next question is for Lauren here. So having your own business now that you've gone from professional chef at the Ritz-Carlton to Panera to now having your own business where you are the creator of everything there. What are some of the challenges that you essentially face when you PCS from one location to another and having to start over?
It's a little bit like doing laundry where you have to actually read the tag, wash, rinse, repeat. Holy cow. So, I mean, to start closing the business, I have to tell all my local clients, hey, I'm moving. This is the cutoff date. And inevitably, people will still try to contact me after the cutoff date while we're packing the house to buy things. It happens. I've gotten to the point where I don't actually shut my business down online. We just do an abbreviated version. And I literally sell jewelry out of the back of my minivan while moving across the country because it's easier than shutting things down. I am blessed to have another military spouse, Megan DiGiovanni, who works with me. She's amazing. Military spouses are not given enough credit for all their talents. Megan is my computer guru and whiz. She runs all the things that makes me look really good with all the stuff that everybody sees. So she lets everyone know that we're on vacation or moving, Then there's the legal paperwork side of things. We have to close down our state taxes in the current state that we're in. We have to open a new LLC and apply for sales and use tax in the new state that we're going to. A way that I found that works well for Hope Design is I actually keep my headquarters based out of my home of record state. And then I set up a satellite location at every state we go to. So I do pay state taxes in both my home state that I'm not currently living in, but I do, register, vote, all the legal things there. So I pay their state taxes as well as my current state. If all this doesn't sound exciting enough, it means double the addresses to change. And, again, little people running around at my ankles all the time. So it's a good time.
And I imagine part of that too is also having to create a new customer base at your new location as well.
Yes.
Folks that don't know you and having to start that all over again.
Absolutely. Well, and fortunately, because we've learned the military is a small community, we call it the deck shuffle. So word of mouth means everything. So if there's a small business that you love and support and they're moving to another duty station and you have friends there, it would mean the world to them for you to reach out and say, hey, you guys have a great thing coming to you. Let me introduce you.
Absolutely.
Oh, word of mouth is the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
The gold standard, especially in the military community. And I can't say that enough. It works both ways, by the way. That whole word of mouth thing works both ways. But as far as you go, gold standard of advertising. Absolutely. We are very powerful in terms of our numbers and our words.
Mm-hmm. But to this point, I've been lucky enough to not actually have to pay for advertising. I pay military spouses to run my social media, and I'd rather pay them than big advertising firms. So here we are.
Sense.
You heard me.
Sense.
So thank you.
So, and it's, it's interesting, the whole adapt and overcome, we get creative with things. And we intend to start out at point A and we end up at point, Z in a completely different area. So Stacy, you have something similar to this. You've kind of done many different things over time and have adapted and pivoted to ever-changing circumstances of, yes, military life. So how is your specific self-employment or working for yourself? How does that journey, how has it led you to where you are today?
Oh my goodness. So North Carolina, the Outer Banks is where I started my wedding coordinating business. Like I said before, and my photography business. I started taking pictures of my son. He was a year old. And if people don't believe that there is a curse for kids in front of a camera, there's absolutely a curse for photographers because they will smile, perfect smile, but their eyes are over here or their eyes are over there or they're up here. They're not looking at the camera. Their face is looking at the camera and the smile, but everywhere we went, we had to pivot and we had to move. So I started. I learned graphic design. I learned how to do websites. I built websites, designed websites, did website administration, and then the only thing that's constant with every single move for me was the photography. And I realized that 99% of my clientele was military, and it's all by word of mouth. And moving from base to base to base, we may not have been around in Buffalo. We were not around the Coast Guard base. the Coast Guard base was 30 to 45 minutes away from our home. So we were out in the civilian world. So it was really hard to try to build a business by word of mouth for other people in the military community. There was no business. So I had to pivot again and picked up making photography props for newborns and shipped them all over the world. They were hand knitted, hand crocheted. Another military spouse and I, we ran the company, but it was still within the photo realm, photography realm. And then we moved to the Navy base. And when we got to the Navy base, we were there for 4 years. I ran the local spouse club. I was in the spouse club for 4 years, but I ran it for 2 years. And everybody heard that I was a photographer. So I was able to build my photography business. And it was strictly military families. It was military high school seniors. It was military women. It was authors of books. And then during that time, I started working in the nonprofit sector, and my photography was seen in Times Square during the most popular time during the season. It was from Thanksgiving Day through Christmas. I submitted all of these images from all different photographers, and there was a lot of them, and 13 of my images, and I had no idea until I got there and saw it. Big lights in the middle of Times Square. 13 of my images were picked to use, and it was a PSA, so I mean, I'm going to take it because it was in lights and it was bigger than day. And then we moved to Oregon. And when we got to Oregon, we were only supposed to be there a year. My husband was on the cutter and he made chief, and we weren't supposed to be there for just a year. So I didn't bother building my business there. And then we got pushed back another year. And then I started with volunteering. I was still working from home in the nonprofit sector. It was a work from home job. And then we moved to South Carolina. So I've been able to actually reach out and do casting calls for Millstock since we've been to South Carolina. A lot of my coasties around here have anteed up, and they've been in front of my camera, and the images are absolutely gorgeous. And I have done photos for Military Spouse Magazine. I'm currently working with another company to do a casting call, and for PCS Grade. So if you see any ads floating around out there in social media land, that's Millstock photos. Or PCS Grade's photo shoots that I've done for PCS Grades.
Boom, boom.
And for anybody watching, Stacy does phenomenal work. I'm trying to convince her that Texas is a great place to come take pictures at. So if you're near her, definitely take advantage of her skills and her talents and get that done. So next question for you, Maria and Lauren. You touched on this a little bit, Lauren, about registering your business and about taxes. So what else can we tell spouses about when moving from one state to another state? What is it that you need to do to be able to set your business back up in legal terms for them to be able to operate again?
Maria, would you like to start with this, or?
Sure.
Can I just say, I like how she just looked, and she's like,
I'm doing this in the back of my head going.
So as I said in the beginning, we built our retirement house 6-7 years ago in Florida. We had a condominium in Florida since we got married. So we have been residents of Florida our whole military career. So when I registered my business, I registered it in Florida and hired an accountant. So I have an accountant who keeps track of all of that. She filed for my federal ID number. She does all my quarterly taxes. And I send all my expenses to her with our taxes every year. So I'm able to keep my business registered in Florida. I have to pay Florida every year to renew my status as an LLC. I am an LLC. And because I have a consulting business and I don't have individual customers, I consult for a couple different corporate wellness companies. I don't have to get a license in each state, and I really just don't really have to move my business. I have to move myself and my household goods, but I don't really have to move my business. And so the one thing, I love being an independent contractor. I'm an independent contractor for these couple different wellness companies that I work for. Being an independent contractor for me has had a lot of advantages. I don't need health insurance because I have that through the military. And I don't really need to accrue vacation time because as an independent contractor, I tell them when I'm available to work. So I can just take time off when I want to. And when we're moving, I just take time off. So for me, being an independent contractor, having my own business has really, really been the best thing. Back when I was an employee and you had to quit a job and then start over, that was really hard. But as an independent contractor with my own company, it gives me a lot more flexibility. So it has worked out really well for me.
Beautiful. A resource that came to mind as you were talking about that, because everybody's from different states, and I've always been advised by all of my lawyer friends, find a lawyer that's registered in the state that you're moving to and reach out to them to see what needs to happen. I think you ladies might be familiar, but for our audience, MSJDN, it's the Military Spouse Judiciary Network. They are phenomenal. It's a whole collective of military spouse lawyers, and they know their stuff. And so if you ask them for a little push in the right direction, they've always been able to help me out.
No, that is awesome. And I really love how you just like all the resources that we're going to be mentioning, by the way, because collectively, all of us probably know them all collectively. We're going to be dropping those into the comments section, but we're also going to have all of those listed out on our blog because Lizanne Lightfoot, our awesome content editor, is going to be creating a blog with all the resources just for you on everything we talk about because she's awesome.
Beautiful.
But Lauren, did you have anything to add to that?
I'm trying to think. We haven't talked about registering your business on post yet. That's another, in the timeline is, if this is move date back up 3 months, start looking as soon as you can, or at least 3 months out, and applying to the next garrison. If you don't know if you're living on post or not, apply anyway, because I guarantee you're going to want to do sales on post through some sort of event. It's not a hateful process, but it's definitely one that's way easier if you start it early. So that's another one that every time was a good thing. Let's see here. Finding your squad has been another thing that has really helped me. So like these ladies that you see here, they're part of one of my many squads because I love cheerleaders. I need all the positivity in my life and I love bringing it. But finding a local one is absolutely worth its weight in gold. You still keep in touch with the ones that you've moved from, right? Still love them. But finding your support network locally has been very helpful in running a small business.
I also think that it's really, really important that we know what, every time we move, what our state and local regulations are. I've unfortunately gone to installations with my husband and met with spouses who are entrepreneurs, and sometimes they will have a business that's operating kind of under the radar screen because I think they feel like, especially living on a military installation, that who's going to check up on them? Is the state going to come and inspect them? And so they make the mistake of just trying to fly under the radar screen, and that really worries me because, as we all know, if you don't have if you don't comply, you're always setting yourself up for liability. And then the way that you structure your business, making sure that you have structured your business so that if something were to happen and you were to get sued or someone were to come after you or register a complaint, that you're not putting your personal assets at liability, that you have a business structure, whatever is right for you, whether it be an LLC or an S Corp or a sole proprietor. It's really important to have that discussion either with a lawyer or with an accountant. I don't have a lawyer, I just have an accountant, but knowing that you have the protections. And so I think that sometimes it's more cumbersome for us to comply with our state and federal and local regulations, but it's so very important to be able to run a safe and compliant and viable business.
No, Absolutely. And you know, I know that we're going to be talking about compliance here in a few minutes, but I do remember, is there any particular example that you can give without naming any bases, people, or anything else, of an example of somebody that may not have been in compliance that you may have seen?
Well, I think just that maybe somebody who is operating a hair business or something that requires a tremendous amount of electricity, let's say that you live on post and you have some type of an engraving business and you have this great big huge machinery and you've got it plugged into the electricity of a 150-year-old military house that isn't really equipped to handle the type of voltage that you're asking it to give you. What if you had a fire? Like, are you covered? Are you covered for that? You know, those types of things. So that would be an example, maybe a pretty extreme one, but it's not unheard of.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't live on post anymore for that reason because of all these soldering I do. I've got some really, really big blow torches that make the fire department uncomfortable. So I own my own house now, don't worry. But yeah, it's a real concern. It really is.
Absolutely. And you know, so it kind of in line with that when it comes to like protecting yourself and protecting your business. So Stacy, for instance, a lot of spouses, you know, they have businesses that provide, you know, a service, you know, type of business, you know, versus just, you know, like a product, like yours with photography. So what lessons have you learned when it comes to protecting your work? And what kind of advice would you give, you know, to another spouse who might be in the process of, you know, standing up their photography business or anything that has to kind of do with content type stuff?
Advice I would give is make sure you have a logo and you turn that logo into a watermark. And you use that watermark on all of your images and before posting digitally online, because anybody can take your image, anybody can use your image, and they may or may not give you photography rights back to the photographer who took the images. And by law, every image that a photographer takes, when they take that shutter, when they click the shutter on their camera, that image by law belongs to them. That's their image forever and always. And make sure when you put your final product out there, make sure there's a watermark on it. Also, never, ever, ever sell the raw images that you take, because that is your personal, that belongs to you. That's your brand. And when you give those photos over to someone else, they're going to edit those images and they're going to put them out there, and it may or may not be within your brand, and it could be bad. You don't want your brand to turn sideways because somebody edited images horribly, and you want your images to reflect what your business model is and the way that you want your images to look and the way you want your images to feel. And if you go as far as not offering digital images, you can do that too. Offer prints. How many families actually print out images these days? And nobody does. Like, I'm looking around my house. I've had one photo shoot, and that was in 2015 because I was gifted that for winning an award. Have not had one since. My son is 15 years old. He's taller than my husband. I don't have family photos. And even those photos are not printed out on my wall. I have nothing on my walls. And you want to print those images out, sell the images. Don't sell your digital images or your raw images. Sell your prints.
Stacy, really quick, can you talk along with how to protect your prints and the logo and the watermarking, can you briefly discuss about like the trademarking and the copywriting of your content as well?
When it comes to intellectual property, right?
Yeah.
So there's a law in place, and I cannot tell you what that law is, or we can do a quick Google after this, but it tells you that every time you click the shutter, that image belongs to the photographer who took it. Now, if you want to get your images trademarked, I do believe it's anywhere from $25 to $35 per image that you trademark. And if anybody goes and uses those images, they can be fined hundreds of thousands of dollars for the use of one image. So if you have the money and you have the time and you have the resources to go and to trademark every single one of your images to protect, not only it protects you, do that. Absolutely do that. And make sure you're getting your paperwork in line, and make sure you have those photo releases, the model releases, saying that they can only use your images in specific ways, because that protects you. That's like a legal binding contract.
And it's interesting, and just FYI, because like I said, we know the answers. If we don't know the answers, we know who does. And if we don't, we'll take it for action. Well, guess what? I've got your action on lock. The Lantham Act. Boom. Just like that. The Lantham Act is also known as the Trademark Act, which is includes exactly what you're referring to. MJ for the win, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something that's so important, just being able to protect yourself as you go through with your business, and making sure you're set up in the correct way and legal way to be able to operate and to keep things together. So Maria, if a lot of spouses, you always hear great ideas come from spouses, and everyone's like, that'd be a great business. You should do it. You could sell that thing. So what advice would you give to spouses who are on the fence of wanting to start a business of their own? What advice would you give them, and what things should they take into consideration when thinking about it and maybe going through the process of setting up that business?
Well, I think one of the big things is understanding, a question I always ask people is it really a business, or is it an expensive hobby? Because I think that a lot of times we have a hobby that we think we're turning into a business, but we just have so much fun doing our hobby that we never really make it a viable business. So a lot of times a business can just be an expensive hobby. So really trying to decipher, do you want just a hobby, or do you really want a business? I think it's really important to, as you think about that, to think about your business model. There's all kinds of resources out there that can help you get started. What does it take to have a business? And I'm big on using envisioning. I use this a lot with my clients and my patients. And I'll say, if you were to envision yourself 2 or 3 years from now, of course, in the health and wellness space, I'll say, if you were at your best health and wellness, what does that look like? And how is that person 2 to 3 years from now different than the person you are now? And I would use the same analogy with starting a business. If you were to envision yourself having a successful business 2 or 3 years from now, what does that look like? And so if they know what the end state, start with the end in mind, and then you can put some different goals in place to achieve that, because we know that the majority of small businesses fail within the first year. So, and I think a lot of the reasons that people fail is because they haven't done their homework, and they don't clearly have in their mind what they want their business to look like. I think you have to know your strengths and weaknesses. I think, like Lauren said, she has someone do some of her social media things for her. I did the same thing. I hired an intern to do some social media for me. It was kind of a win-win situation. I didn't pay her, but she was in college, and then she was able to use me as a reference. I also helped her with her resume and her job applications, and really because of her working for me, she ended up getting an internship that she probably wouldn't have gotten. So I think that you have to be careful. I don't want to ever insinuate that we would use and abuse interns, but I think that there can be ways that we can work with people when we know what our strengths are not. So I think you have to be honest about what your strengths and weaknesses are. And knowing, as we were already talking about earlier, knowing about what the regulations are between federal and state, and making sure that you've got your liability coverage, because you don't want to find out the hard way to have someone take all your personal assets. So I think all those are really important. The one thing I do want to say, and I know this is just putting a plug in, but there are so many resources out there now. I mean, with all of this discussion today, and probably resources that you have through PCS Grades, Military One Source, USO Pathfinder, I think it's
IVMF.
IVMF.
Thank you, IVMF. I always get that acronym wrong. Thank you. They have some great, the Rosie Network, Military Spouse Corporate Career Network. when I started my business years ago, I either didn't know about all of those resources or they weren't all there. But now there really are a wealth of resources that you can tap into. And so there's so many people out there that are in the spouse employment space now, so many different organizations, and they want to help us. So tap into some of those. I know the Rosie Network, working with them, and so is Lauren. We're working on a one-stop shop entrepreneurial workbook or guidebook or whatever we're going to call it, so that spouses have all the resources in one spot to have a successful and compliant business.
That's really awesome. And, you know, it's really easy to get bogged down. I think I say this in some reference every week. So it's like walking into Starbucks sometimes. You get so overwhelmed with all of the options. You're like kind of paralyzed. You need somebody to kind of like help walk you through, okay, here's this, here's this, here's this. And it's very much similar. You know, we've got, just like all of the other organizations you mentioned, you know, Hiring Our Heroes. Shout out, Brian Alvarado, you're watching. I see you. I see you. And the National Military Spouse Network, you know, with Sue Hobbin, they just celebrated 10 years, and the majority of them, they offer these resources as well. And it's just so great because I need somebody to stand next to me if I'm an entrepreneur. I need somebody to stand next to me and say, this is what you're doing. This is what you need to know. Go down the rabbit hole. If somebody just points, I'll do the rest. I just need somebody to point. So thank you for all of those resources. And with that, so we talked about hobbies. Like, do you really like, is this like a hobby you really like, or is this a business? And, you know, a lot of businesses start out that way. I, for the record, am a freelance writer, and I have been for years, and it's saved my rear end several times during moves. But I remember I used to just write really long Facebook posts, and people would be like, oh my gosh, you should be a writer. And then I got my first writing gig. And it was for free, and that's okay, because that's where we were at that point in time. And when I got my very first paid one, and it was $30, I didn't even cash the check because I was so excited, because I was doing something I totally loved. I don't even think I cashed it. I just saved it. Yeah, I'm a dork like that. But it brought me joy to be able to start building and being requested to write pieces and create other content, because I had this creative crazy in my brain, which you see, obviously. I had such joy. So I would like to know from each of you, what has been your greatest joy in having your own business? Let's go ahead and start with you, Lauren.
My greatest joy would having my own self-identity, having it back. I really got lost in I am Mrs. Hope. It's really nice to be me again. It really is. I love having a job that allows me to raise my kids first and, you know, do all of the other life things second and focus on what I want to focus on. And I'm grateful for that. If I can throw in one other thing, touching back, giving yourself grace. If you want to start a business, holy cow, you know you're going to move every couple of years anyway. So you're going to do like the 2 steps forward and then the 1 step back, and it happens, and it's okay. You're not failing just because you're not where you thought you would be. I mean, I write all my business plans on a cocktail napkin, seriously. And sometimes they get shredded up when we start over, but that's okay, because you invent something else. You learn to pivot, and that's why I think we're surviving COVID so well right now, is we're experts at pivoting. So.
Word. What about you, Stacy? What brings you that joy of owning your own business?
So I love photographing women. I love showing them how to stand. I love making them uncomfortable in front of the camera and telling them to trust me, to let go, and to allow me to work my magic and to show them from my camera how beautiful they look after I take their photo. And they were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I could look like that. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that my body can move like that to make me look like that. I mean, that's my greatest joy. I love being able to show women, especially women, and families, how beautiful they are, and watching their confidence rise, and the smile on their face and their eyes get a little bit brighter. I love doing that.
And Miss Maria. Sorry. You have been.
Sing to me, MJ.
What is it that brings you joy in owning your own business?
I think it's very empowering. I think it's just empowering to have your own business. I think it's so important for me to have my own thing. As Lauren said, so often in the military, we get attached to our service member and what they do and what their rank is and what their title is and what they do. And I've always felt that it's so important to have my own thing. And so I feel best when I am working and contributing and using the knowledge, skills, and talents that I have in a meaningful way. And as much as I love the Army, I'm not in the Army anymore. I don't want to be all about the Army. I like having my separate thing. So during COVID, it's been hard because the one company that I did the majority of my consulting for, unfortunately, filed for bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. So I haven't had nearly as much work. And so a couple of weeks ago, one day when my husband came home and he said, "So how was your day?" And I looked at him and I said, "Sadly, uneventful." And I said, "I'm starting to feel really insignificant because I'm not working as much and hardly working at all." And he said, "Well, you're significant to me and the kids." And I said, "I know I am. And I want to be significant to you and the kids, but that's not all of me." And so I think that we aren't just one thing, and we do a lot of different things. So I am now negotiating with another company to start some work with them. So hopefully that will pan out. But in the meantime, I've also been volunteering. I've been working at the Capital Area Food Bank, so in downtown DC. And on Saturday, I made boxes. I probably made 500 boxes. I took cardboard, I took tape across them, I made boxes, and I put stickers on them. And when I came home, my husband was like, "Well, how did it go?" I said, "I felt like I was making a difference." And it was meaningful work because the food bank said they've had an increase, a 300-fold increase in requests for food. And so we were just cranking out boxes and food boxes. And so that felt really meaningful. So the joy and just having my own thing, the joy and feeling valued. I know when I work, I give value, but I like to also be valued. And so I think that when you have your own thing, you can give value, but you can also be valued back. And so I think for me, confidence-wise, that's one of my biggest joys.
Yeah, so many good things. I mean, I think you guys said it best, having something for us and for our identity, that we're not just Mrs. Harless, we're not just, the major's wife, but we have our own identity. We are somebody, and being able to do something that is more than just keeping our house clean and keeping our house running and organizing the next PCS. It's something that's meaningful for us. So over the last year, we've seen the DoD really do a big push into spouse employment and trying to do something to help with the spouse employment issues. So Maria, what can you tell us now about the current Army's policies and programs that they have in place to kind of help with the spouse employment issues that we've seen?
Well, thanks for that question, Megan. I think that, as we said, that the DoD, so not just being Army, but DoD, there's so many initiatives, like we said, with Hiring Our Heroes, with Military One Source, with so many different agencies. I think what was a big frustration, and actually it was Lauren who alerted me to this, is that especially when you live on a military installation, there's a whole process that you have to go through in order to operate your home-based business. And so found out through Lauren and some others that the process was taking forever. You have to apply through the privatized partner and then through MWR, and different installations were doing things differently. And I think Lauren said she applied 3 or 4 times, and they kept losing her application. And so with the Army, the home-based business falls under the G9. And so after hearing that from Lauren and some of the other spouses, the frustrations they had, I started working with the G9, and I was like, this is unacceptable. This cannot stand. And so the Army put out a directive last year that the applications have to be reviewed and decided on within 30 days. And then there's a whole process in place now. It used to be that businesses were turned down because they were perceived to be in conflict with maybe APHES or DECA or something. And now they've looked at all that and said, there's hardly anything that a spouse is doing that really is in competition with APHES or DECA or other agencies. And so the one good thing is if you register your business with MWR, which it is mandated on Army installations, that then sometimes you're given the opportunity to showcase your business. So if MWR is going to have like an air show or a health fair or something, they will inform the home-based businesses, hey, if you want to have a table, we won't advertise for you, but you can certainly utilize our space and our event to get the word out. So I think that we're doing this investigative work with the project we're working on with the Rosie Network to see what the other installations have in place and how we can streamline the processes. And unfortunately, right now during COVID, I'm not able to travel with Jimmy to the installations. I was doing that before COVID. And so I'm always like, I feel like I'm boots on the ground, checking in on people. How does it work there? Are you registering your businesses? How is it working with MWR? Is the private partner, involved? And so I always like to, as my husband would say, check, then verify, trust, then verify. So I trust this is being done at the installations because that's what the directive was that was put out. But whether it's really happening, we'll find out if I ever get to start traveling again.
TBD,
Yeah.
Right? Oh gosh.
And I just want to say, sorry, MJ, really quick. I just want to say, for everybody that's watching, for the spouses that are watching, just how comforting it is to know that we have people in Maria's position that care about the issues that are going on, that care about the issues that we are experiencing, and hearing us, hearing Lauren speak up, that this is an issue, and seeing that changes are being made, and that, they are looking into it to figure out how to fix this, to make it easier and to make it better for spouses who are PCSing with their business. So I just want to say, for all the spouses and everybody watching, if you are experiencing an issue, if you have a concern, don't be afraid to speak up, because all it takes is one voice to be heard and to make a difference. And we can see that here with Lauren speaking up and Maria being able to hear her and being able to, to make a difference, that impacts everybody, so don't be afraid of that. And thank you, Lauren, for doing that on behalf of all spouses, for speaking up. And thank you, Maria, for
being positive of that.
Yeah, for being willing to listen, to what our issues are and our concerns are, and being able, to say, let me look at that and let's fix that. So thank you for both of you.
Yeah, it's like, literally, we're a military family. We take care of each other, and just because we may not be experiencing it or we are experiencing it, we don't want our future peeps, the ones we pass the torch to experience it. So if we could fix it now, or help to, anyways, we could pass the torch and they can continue our work at some point. And just to piggyback off of that, I really think in addition to speaking up and in addition to having advocates like Maria, like Lauren, on any issue, like Megan, having those advocates is awesome. So if you are in a position to do that, bring somebody along for the ride. If you're in a position to be able to name drop somebody or use somebody's skills, bring that on. If you know somebody with a home-based business or somebody who's trying to start out with something, scream it from the rooftops. And I'm saying that because I'm going to give a quick example. I used to live in Beaufort, South Carolina. Shout out Parris Island, where Marines are made. And my very first magazine article for Military Spouse Magazine included the book club that I ran. And it wasn't just Your Mother's Book Club, which, by the way, was the title of the article. And one of our participants there, who was a military spouse, was a military spouse photographer. And so I asked her to take some photos of our book club. And so we did, and made sure that she had credit. So her very first magazine photo credit was from that book club, which she participated in. But it was great because that's a really, really good thing. You're moving somebody along. And she has had so many gigs as a photographer. And it's not just because of me, but because of other people helping other people. So help other people. Be kind, people. Okay, last question for you, Maria, is going to be this. So for those spouses who are working outside the home, like me, you know, I kind of like having a boss. I'm an entrepreneur. I like to grow something that already exists. And in certain fields, there are, you know, are specific state licensures or certifications, whether you're a licensed family counselor like I wanted to be, or a cosmetologist, or a therapist, or a doctor, or a nurse, or a teacher. For those that require license and certifications, what can you tell us about any progress that has been made, whether that's DoD specific or Army specific, and what DoD or Army resources do you think might be able to help spouses in those types of career fields?
Well, I do know that DoD will reimburse spouses up to $500 for their licensures if they have to get a new license in a new state. And then I know with our Army Emergency Relief, they can give a grant or a loan up to $2,500 more if a license is more than $500. There are some hiccups with it. I understand that the service member is the one who has to apply for it, and sometimes it can take months and months to get it. So they're looking at that, but I can see that at least that's some progress that they're making in that area of reimbursing spouses for licensure. But I really think it goes back to advocating for our governors. So if you have any influence with any of your legislators in your states, ask them if they have the reciprocity that some of the other states have. A lot of the professions have gone to having their individual compacts. So the nurses years ago created this nurses compact, and I think that attorneys have one, but it doesn't seem right to me that each individual profession has to have their own compact, and then the states could pick and choose what they decided to comply with those compacts. They could give them expedited licensure or give them 90 days before they got their license. It's all over the board with the states. I think that the most reasonable thing is that all of the governors adopt the reciprocity of licensure, where they grant a spouse a license if they're in good standing in either their home of record or their previous state, because a state won't grant you a license if you're not in good standing in another state. So I think that that's probably the best progress that we can make. And like I said, I do credit the Second Lady Karen Pence's office with working really hard. She's very passionate about that. So I think that if you have any influence or any contacts with any of your legislative people, see if you can really advocate for those reciprocity bills to go into place. I think we've got about 7 or 8 states. Their governors have signed those. So we are making some progress.
No, that's awesome. And we did have a question from Marla Batista. Shout out Marla of the Batista Project. So she wanted to know kind of, will reestablishing businesses in new locations ever be included in the future? And I think that she means maybe in conjunction with the licensure. Have you heard any scuttlebutt about that?
I'm not exactly sure what she means by reestablishing businesses in new locations, because I know we talked about that if you're someone like Lauren who has to pay taxes because she sells a product. I'm not sure what exactly she means reestablishing a business, like getting a license in each state. Probably, I mean, it depends on if you're looking at like a business license to operate a business versus like liability, or looking at registration or licensure. I think those are 2 different things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Marla, if you could maybe just clarify a little bit more in your question on the reestablishing of businesses and kind of what you mean.
Future webinar.
Right. Future rep. See, we're just getting our content right here. And yes, reestablishing your business, maybe if you mean in terms of assistance from the military, or if you mean in terms of licensing and licensing your business.
And we have
let us know.
Businesses crossover. If I'm home-based approved at this one, can I fast track almost to another one?
That would be somebody writing this down. Come on, write this down, people. Stacy, somebody write this down. I don't have a pen.
Well, the other thing that I know I've been working with is there's a lot of job. There's not a lot of job. There's a lot of job resources. But one of the companies I'm working with, Military Spouse Corporate Career Network, they are actually a job placement company. And so what I've been working with them on is more telework positions, because I think that for spouses is really a good way to take your business with you, is if you can telecommute. And I think that up until COVID, there were so many businesses that thought there's no way we can't have our employees telecommute. Well, I think they realized that, yeah, you can have your employees telecommute. And so I'm trying to work with some of the job placement companies that have a big focus on spouse employment, and seeing how we can increase the availability and visibility of military spouses for telework. Because even in telehealth, I mean, never before could you see a doctor virtually. You always had to go in. Well, guess what? We're seeing doctors virtually now. So if we can do telehealth, I think that will open up a lot of possibilities for military spouses, and be able to take their jobs with them wherever they go. And definitely that whole telehealth world and the whole virtual working.
You know what's interesting? I've worked from home, I think, for like the last, I would have to say the last 4 or 5 years. 3 or 4 years. I might be dating myself. Anyways, you know, and getting that through employ, like if you were to go, you know, work outside of your home, like I do, and I would really most of the time prefer that. But nobody ever really wanted to do that. You might get a telecommute day if you're lucky, but you know, for the most part, they want you in the office, and maybe it was because they couldn't structure you, or they didn't know how to manage from that way. Who knows? Everybody's different. But what we're seeing is this is a huge bonus for military spouses, because now we're seeing the entire country / world having to pivot and work from home. And what are we seeing? We're seeing productivity. We are seeing work be done. We are seeing that it can be done. So now we could say, oh, you don't know if it'll work or not? Here, give me another reason why I can't work from home. I dare you.
Well, child care has always been one of the biggest obstacles to spouse employment. And so working from home may be an option for some people if they can do it with their children at home, so that they don't have to try to find childcare. It wouldn't work for everyone. There are some people that either wouldn't want to work from home or really couldn't with their child's situation. So it's not for everyone, but I do think it gives some options for some people.
No, absolutely. Let's see. We've got, this is actually pretty interesting. This, I think, this was Angela. Shout out, Angela. She was responding regarding the reciprocity. Reciprocity between states for mil spouses certifications is a huge thing. I stopped teaching in part because the difficulty of getting recertified from state to state, and this goes definitely for many careers. And we need our teachers more than anything right now. So I know everybody's working on it, and I'm going to talk somebody to death for the rest of our lives, because it might not impact me. My kiddos might not need to stay home. You know what I mean? My kiddos are good to go, but I want to pass this on to the next generation of spouses. And this is interesting too. Lizanne, who is our content editor, she said, great conversation. So many spouses struggle with this. After working at a high paying position and making more than my Marine, I was then unemployed for 6 years before I finally created my freelance writing LLC. And wouldn't you all agree that sometimes we fall into the whole entrepreneurial aspect of things, or we're accidental entrepreneurs? Even if it's just
serial entrepreneurial.
There you go. Pivot. Okay, so before we go, do we have any saved rounds? Is there any advice, tips, tricks, or resources that you would like to provide our audience with before we hit the ground running?
Ooh. Well, I just want to say how grateful I am for all of our spouses, because everywhere that I go, I'm so impressed, so incredibly impressed with all the spouses. And one of the things that I decided to do when Jimmy took over as Chief of Staff of the Army was to, it has to have an acronym, SAS, S-A-S, Spotlight Army Spouses. So everywhere I go, I try to highlight all the great things that you all do, all the great things that you are. When we were traveling overseas, every gift that I gave to a foreign dignitary was something that an Army spouse made, Lauren included. And so it just is, I just feel like it's almost my duty, but it's also my honor, because we have such amazing spouses out there that I feel like it's my duty to shout it out from the rooftops and tell everybody how wonderful you are. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to be on your little program today, but also to say that I'm just really grateful for everyone.
Oh, we're grateful, especially to have a voice at the top, but to have someone to listen and help us solve the problems that we see on the ground. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So if I were to say, I would say if anybody had any talents, do some research on those talents. Figure out how to make it work for you. Find your purpose. Launch it broken, fix it later.
Yes.
And I think it was Lakeisha that said that. Launch
Lakeisha
it broken.
Cole.
Launch it broken, fix it live. Lakeisha Cole.
Do it. Just do it. Pick up a camera. If you don't know anything about a camera, go on YouTube. YouTube has everything about learning their camera. It tells you how to edit photos, what the best lens is. I have to go on YouTube now to go find another lens.
So I figure out how to electrically rewire my house right now.
YouTube.
Because we can do it all. We really can.
Yes. I mean, it's there. The tools are there. Learn graphic design. Learn websites. Websites are huge right now. Everybody has a website who's in business.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many of your friends and family and your network who needs those people to help them set up their business. Be that person. If somebody has something that they're looking for, if somebody needs a cake, figure out how to make the dang cake. You can do it. I did it. Pick up a crochet hook. Let's make some hats for newborns. Ship them all over the world. I did it. If I can do it, you can do it. And I couldn't even crochet a perfect circle there for a while.
Well, and the other thing is, I always used to say, oh, I'll do that when Jimmy retires, or when Jimmy retires, I'll think about doing that. Well, here we are 39 years later. I don't think man is ever going to retire. So if you wait until the timing is right, it's never going to be right. And I've read studies that say that on people's deathbeds, they regret more the things they didn't do than the things that they did. So there's never a good time. Just do it.
And all of these ladies that are in direct sales, don't be scared of direct sales. I was scared of direct sales, and I jumped into a direct sale business, and I am having the best time. My tribe of women are all over the world, and those people are still my tribe. They're in the business with me, and we are, it's all about grace, giving yourself grace and boosting the confidence of other women around you. So there's so many options out there. Just don't wait. Don't wait.
Don't hesitate. Oh, sorry. I'm on a rhyming thing here. Anyways, well, that is about it. I want to thank all of our guests. I want to thank Lauren Hope. I want to thank Maria McConville, and I want to thank our very own Stacy Benson, and of course, as always, our Megan Harless. This right here is a bunch of powerhouses. Y'all recognize, okay? We had a great chat. If you need to replay it, go back. We've got tons of resources coming your way here shortly. And until next week, this too shall PCS. Bye.